Hi there, welcome to Games Over Qualia. My name is Devon. These videos work in 3 different parts. First, you send me your game and you fill out this form about your intended experience. Second, I'll play the game completely blind and then I explain what I think the game was trying to do. Third, I compare my blind experience with your intended experience and we'll see if they align or if they don't. Today's game is called Cave Escape. This is by this developer here. And the only thing they wanted me to know about it before going in was this. So that's it. We're going to play it and then we'll come back. Okay, so I have played Cave Escape and these are my first impressions. Cave Escape feels very much like a precision platformer that was modeled after Celeste, or at least it took heavy inspiration from Celeste. It definitely feels that way. I would say it feels that way primarily because of the look of the game. As you can see, it looks very similar to Celeste in the sense that it's using kind of the same kind of pixelated look and everything like that, but also just because it's a precision platformer. And when I think of precision platformer, that's what I think of as Celeste. My basic feelings going into this game was that it was good, right? I played it and I thought it was great. I liked it enough to play the whole game and then play it again. To try to look at some stuff. Like usually if I'm playing like an indie game and it feels a little off-putting, and then it's a little trying for me to go into it. But this one felt good. Like it was like, it felt like it was really, it felt like a game jam game that was pushed, right? Like they had like this concept. It felt like you had a concept and then you expanded upon it, right? And polished it up and made it feel really good. And that's what I felt. I felt like it was a really good experience to have had. And it doesn't really feel more than that. It just feels like it was a good precision platformer that I've discovered. And if I played this game randomly, I'd be like, oh, wow, hey, that's pretty good. The game is great. I do really like the game. I don't want to harp on it. I want to say it feels generic. It's not generic because I don't think I've actually played a game like it before, but it doesn't feel like it goes the extra step. Like if you think about Celeste has this precision platforming mechanic that feels really fluid, and it's built, of course, off of the Pico 8 original version, right, where you had this, the whole game was based off of that precision platforming mechanic, and it made kind of this, in fact, the Pico 8 version of Celeste is probably a better comparison for Cave Escape. In the Pico 8 version of Celeste, it felt like it was just a fun game, right? It was just kind of like a fun little challenge, right? Here you go. Here's your little challenge. See if you can get past it, right? But you can tell when it made a bigger game off of the Pico 8 version, the bigger game had something more to it. Obviously, it had the narrative, right, that was involved that I really, really liked. In fact, I made a whole video essay on the whole thing. In Celeste specifically, you have this wall jumping mechanic, which feels very nimble. And this comes to mind, specifically the wall jumping, because in this game, in Cave Escape, there's a lot of wall jumping involved. And the wall jumping in here does not feel as good. And I didn't want to harp on this too much, but it's really the only thing that I took away from this game. And it's probably because it's the biggest friction point for me. Because like the whole game felt fine. And it's like if you were to fix this part, and I mean fix like as in make it better for me, I'm not so sure if it would make the whole game better. I mean, it might. I'm not exactly sure. It would make it feel less conflicting, at least for me. And like I said, this was the biggest friction point for me. When you are pushed up against the wall, you have to be pushed up against the wall in order to jump off of it. Every time I would go to wall jump, I would go to the wall and then try to jump off of it by tilting my control stick the opposite way and then jumping, but I would end up just falling. And I did that so many times. And I think the reason why is because you have to be pushed up against the wall. Like you have to have your control stick tilting toward the wall. Say this is the wall, you're tilting toward it in order to stick to it. And then you can jump from there. Now that seems like a very small thing, but like in Celeste, you don't even have to be stuck to the wall in order to wall jump. You can just be next to the wall. Like as long as you are within that very small proximity, you can wall jump, right? You don't have to be stuck to the wall. And what that does to me is that it feels like I'm much more nimble, as in I can like say, here's the wall, I'm jumping toward the wall, and I'm not necessarily holding my control stick over there. I'm holding it this way because I know I'm going to jump the other way. So when I do that, I can just jump without having to push my control stick and squish. I can go from a stand to jump to jump to jump to another platforming to jump. Like it feels like I can do it quickly. Whereas in this one, in Cave Escape, it feels like I can't do it that quickly. During the last part of the game where you had that big wall climb, that felt like it used a lot of wall jumping. And to me, it felt like I needed to go up really fast, and I wasn't able to. I felt like I had to stick to the wall, like it required me to slow down my controls. It required me to stop, stick, and then jump, and then stop, stick, and then jump. And it was just like that over and over and over. I got to the point where I got used to it, and I ended up, being able to get over that kind of friction and continue up my way. But that definitely held me back from like expressing myself really well mechanically throughout the game. So I felt like my mechanical expression was limited in here, when I compare it to Celeste. And I know that I'm comparing this to Celeste, and that might be unfair, but that's definitely what it brought me back to. Like the shapes of everything, the level design. The level design is really good in here. I really like the level design. But the everything that is in this game really harkens back to Celeste. It feels like it anyway. Aesthetically, it does. So when I have those aesthetics, when I have this, similar type of gameplay, it makes my mind go to Celeste, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is the type of gameplay that I am expecting. And so when I play it and it doesn't really feel the same, it feels awkward. I think that's the best way to say it, is it feels a little awkward. There was one part that I thought was really cool. It had some really good anxiety in it for me. And that was when you're fighting skeletons in here, and there's times where, so like the skeletons are, the first time that you come across a skeleton, this is great design, by the way. The skeleton is just walking across a platform, and I love the level design here where you have to really pay attention to where you're going to jump because it's too far from one edge. And as far as I remember, you don't have the dash yet. I don't remember. Anyway, but you have the stair stepping thing, which means that the player needs to go down below before jumping on top of the next gap there to get to the skeleton. But I love the introduction here where you show the skeleton, walking around, and then I think you fight another one later on and another one. The whole time there's elements that are in the cave with you, like little elements meaning like little decorative pieces like flowers and stuff like that, flowers and mushrooms. And so it feels really, really cool when I'm going through here. And again, a great level design, but there's a part where you're jumping over a set of spikes. It's so precise. It's giving the player a specific part, like there's no other way to go except for over these spikes, and you have to jump over the spikes and land on this specific moment where there's a little pile of bones. And when you pass the pile of bones, it feels like it's just another decorative element. But then it builds up into a skeleton, and the skeleton starts to fight you. That was really cool. That was really surprising. But it wasn't just that part. And again, this is brilliant level design, I think, and enemy placement. I would say, maybe, is this mise en place? Mise en place? Mise en scene? Is there a French term? Is there a bloated French term we can use for placement of enemies?
Placement des ennemis.
Yeah, that. So after I got that little strawberry, I came back down, and you have this little funneling thing where the player has to go into the little cavern. And in the cavern, you have a little pile of bones. And immediately I got this high anxiety. I'm like, a pile of bones, I better get ready. And nothing happens. It's just a pile of bones. And I love that. And especially within the next section, because as soon as you get into the next part of the level, then your light now is much smaller, and your character can't see, past a whole lot of things. And you come up upon those piles of bones over and over, some of them turning into skeletons and some of them not. And I thought that was brilliant. I really, really liked that because it gave me the feeling of horror without really needing to have horror elements, right? I mean, this game is not a scary game, but that part was more scary than I think a lot of horror games I've had indies show me in the past. And I think that's so interesting. You created a sense of anxiety that was only informed by the placement of enemies and like building up context, right? You built up context in my head. Some of these piles of bones will turn into enemies, but who knows? Is it going to be all of them? Who knows? And I love that. That's just so cool. Other than that, the game didn't really feel... It felt like a Game Jam game. And I think the reason why my mind keeps going back to Game Jam game is because Game Jam games are usually they're made like, well, they're short for one, right? But they're made for a very specific reason, and that's just let's get everything. Let's have the theme, right? Whatever the theme of the Game Jam is. Let's meet that theme, make this interactive thing, and just push it out, right? Typically, you don't have a strong vision for those types of games. You just kind of want to take the theme, apply it to your mechanics, and then push it out and say that you made something competent. And this game feels very competent. And I mean, it feels better than a game jam game. It feels better because it has lots of elements that feel thought out, right? Especially the level design. The level design feels very thought out. So I'm not calling this lazy by any means. It is not a lazy game. It just feels a little generic. Maybe lacks a bigger vision. Maybe something to say something. Like for example, Celeste has the narrative, right? That's in Celeste that ties everything together. And it kind of gives us the reason why we're climbing the mountain, right, in the first place. But I didn't feel the need to push to play the game. I probably wouldn't tell other people about this game, like as cool as it was, because there was nothing in it that was pulling me toward it, right? It was other than just what was happening, which was the precision platforming and the light combat. I said that the Pico 8 version of Celeste was probably a better comparison for Cave Escape because in the Pico 8 version, we didn't really have a cohesive vision per se. There was like a mountain that we're climbing, but there was no real context for anything. It felt like a puzzle by puzzle basis. In fact, a lot of times whenever I see a game that doesn't have a cohesive through line, my brain always goes back to Portal. The extra levels that you get at the end, playing those is fun mechanically. It does challenge your mind, but they're empty of any context anymore, right? Because they don't mean anything. It's just the same chambers, but now they're modded a little bit differently. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where it doesn't really have much of an interest in anything more than the surface level mechanics at play, right? Just the puzzles themselves. Other than that, like I said, I thought it was a great game, but now I'm really curious as to what the developer was going to say their intentions were. I imagine it's just going to be more of, I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so the first question for the developer during this part of the forum is, what were you hoping the player would feel while playing your game? What I then go on to say is that this is not about genre, right? Roguelike, platformer, systems, tight controls, or good feedback. It's about emotions and sensations. For example, I wanted the player to feel lost and small when they wandered empty levels, or I wanted the player to feel cozy while engaging with low pressure. I wanted the player to feel constantly pressured, pushed, and pulled with high tension, something like that, right? Martin answered that question with, the game emphasizes exploration and gradual progression, with challenges that steadily increase in difficulty. Mechanics are taught organically through gameplay without explicit tutorials. The narrative is minimal, designed to create unease in a dark cave environment heightened by the absence of music. In the final sequence, the player's skills are fully tested as they race to escape the cave while rising lava adds pressure and urgency. The experience is meant to end with a strong sense of accomplishment and relief. So that's very interesting. It's interesting because a lot of that is mechanically driven, a lot of gameplay driven, not so much sensation driven. But we're going to go on to the next question. The next question was, why did you choose this experience? For example, what drew you to it? What excites you about it? What personal compass led you to make this game instead of a different one? Martin said, I was inspired by platformers such as Celeste. Hey, look at that. HK and Messenger. I have not played HK or Messenger. I don't know what those are. And wanted to create a complete game on my own. Oh, is this your first game? That's pretty cool. The project was focused primarily on level design and coding practice rather than story or visuals. I really enjoyed working on the level design and consistently tried to see the game from the player's POV, gradually increasing the difficulty of each challenge without making it overwhelming or frustrating. So that's why you chose to make this game and not a different game. I think we'll talk about that in a little bit. My third question was, what were the specific moments, mechanics, or ideas that built around that emotional goal? So for example, how would you say that you achieved the feeling that you intended? How did you mean for your mechanics to be felt? Martin answered, I may have already touched on this in an earlier answer, but to be more specific, my goal was to create fluid movement and tight controls so that the difficulty could ramp up and be manageable. Unlockable abilities and sword upgrades strengthened the sense of progression, while subtle background changes visually reinforce it. Although the game is linear, I hoped I maintained a feeling of exploration throughout. This is interesting. So I definitely got the Celeste thing right, for sure. It was just an inspiration. Probably didn't try to copy the game at all. I mean, Celeste doesn't have any combat in it. The first part where I talked about what sensations did you want, right? What kind of experience did you want? You said you wanted gradual progression, challenges that steadily increase in difficulty, mechanics that are taught organically through gameplay. So yeah, you did all of that, and congratulations on that. Especially if this is your first game, like that's crazy. Not sure if this is your first whole game. I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought that worked really, really well. But putting that aside, you answered the emotions and sensations thing with mechanics. And I think this is an interesting thing because when I played the game, that is mostly what I felt. I thought what you did, like I said, with the skill building, the level design is perfect. Your placement of enemies and everything is just, shows a lot of competency. I think you're really good at doing this kind of stuff. I think you're great at making these things. I think that's good. But what I felt didn't seem to say much. And it was interesting because your response to that question about emotions was the mechanics, right? You defaulted to mechanics to you made the game because the mechanics were the things that you wanted to make, which is fine and that's great. But that would explain why I didn't really feel a whole lot more to it. For example, so if somebody had asked you, what is Celeste, right? Why should I play Celeste? Why is that game interesting? You probably wouldn't say, oh, it's a precision platformer with fluid mechanics. It's a little bit more than that. A lot of games that we play have a lot of really close emotional holds on us. And I don't mean emotional as in like ethereal feelings that you have about the game. I mean like, when you play Celeste, at least when I did, I feel really, really good about the progression that I'm making in Celeste. Like I'm just not attaching myself specifically to the narrative, but I like the type of skill progression that I have in Celeste. Not so much just the skill progression, but I feel, I guess like Dark Souls. I feel like Celeste, how a lot of people feel with Dark Souls. There's a lot of people that have said that, when they're depressed, they'll play Dark Souls and they'll come out in a better mood because it feels like they're taking on such a big challenge to them. And that's an emotional thing for them, right? Same with Celeste for me. When I'm playing Celeste, it feels like such a big task ahead of me to try to master this type of little single screen puzzle that I have. To try to master that puzzle, it really puts me into this place where I really need to hone my skills as hard as I can in order to get past this thing. And then once I do, then I'm relieved. I feel this sense of, great accomplishment. And I know that's what you said that you wanted to do, Martin, with your game, was that you wanted to have this sense of accomplishment and relief. And I wouldn't say, okay, so the game does have that stuff in it, but I wouldn't say that I felt as much of that kind of emotion, right? It didn't really hit me in the same way. But I would say if you wanted to have this kind of accomplishment and relief in your game, that I feel like it needs to be more of a cohesive vision. Because like I said, the game does feel really well done in terms of, in terms of design, in terms of level design, enemy placement. It feels really good to play because it feels fluid. It doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot of things pushing against me. I don't feel a lot of points of friction, which is good. I think that's a great thing. Like I said, I think you're really good at what you do. But I would say what's probably missing here is probably a vision, right? When I think of Celeste, and I think this is the reason why I said your game feels like a game jam game, is because usually when you're doing a game jam game, there's not a whole lot of vision there. You don't have you don't start with the idea of what the game should be and then push it out. You're starting with basically a theme, right, that you're given. It's not coming from an idea that you just want to express. It's not just an idea that you have that you want to put through to mechanics and then create the game. It's externally motivated. And I would say that this game, Cave Escape, feels externally motivated. It feels that way to me. It doesn't feel like there's a vision that lives within this game, right? The vision, if there is one, would be what you described in your intent, which was the use of gradual skill sets, right? No explicit tutorials, a sense of exploration, that kind of thing. I would say that those things live in there, but I wouldn't say that they coalesce. I wouldn't say that they come together to create something greater than the whole. There is an experience here that's in the game, and I think actually there's something really unique about your game in the sense that it has some light combat fused with precision platforming, but it feels parallel, kind of like Mega Man. Or the early Mega Man games where you're shooting and platforming at the same time. This one feels like it's precision platforming with sword swinging at the same time. which might be in other games. I know you said HK and Messenger. I haven't played those games, so I'm not sure. There's probably a vision that lives within there somewhere, that there's something that makes all these things mixed together and something that you would say that you are very attached to. And there are some things that I think really, really work in terms of a vision. And I think you touched on them in that intro paragraph. You said something about the unease. In fact, we were just talking about those skeletons, right, in my previous section there. If I were to recommend this game to someone else, one of the things that I would recommend it based on would be those moments, right? Those moments that the skeletons come up. Now, I wouldn't say, hey, play this game because there's these moments where the skeletons, I wouldn't, spoil the surprise. But the idea there is that when I think about the game, I think about the experience that I had, and I want to share it for that reason. It's like when you're telling somebody about a great movie that you watched and you had such a great experience with. When you tell someone about it, you just say, man, that was a really good movie. You should go watch it. Celeste is a really good game. You should go play it because there's lots of emotional highs and lows in that game. It's really interesting. And the same thing I would say about these moments in your game where we have like the skeleton stuff, like that part was really cool. And I would tell other people to play this game because there's this part that's really cool. I wish that's the whole game. I wish the whole game did that to me. I think that's what I'm thinking about when it comes to this vision idea that I'm talking about. I think if the game had a holistic vision that gave me this sense of experience, I would like that. I would like to share this game with others for that reason. I want to put out that experience for others to have. I think that would be really cool. The fact that you answered my emotional questions and experiential questions with that type of language makes me feel like that's the reason why you made this game in the first place. Which is fine. I think that's okay to do, especially like I said before, especially if this is your first game, that's really impressive. But I would say if you wanted something that people are going to come out with an experience that they were just like, oh, wow, what a great experience. I think you want to mold something, right? From within yourself. You want to express an experience that you want others to have and then put that into the mechanics, put that into game design. I just now realized, there was I think 5 other games on your page. So I have to go play those now. So this must have been like some time ago in the past or whatever, but this was a really cool thing to have seen. So I think that's awesome. So I got to go play your other games now. For those who are watching this game, you can play. There's a link in the description. For those developers who submit a game, this is a pay what you want service. You can pay whatever you want. You can pay nothing. That's totally fine. You can pay up to however much you want to. I accept donations. That's really great. But it's because of those that fund these videos. There is a Patreon if you like these types of videos. And in the Patreon, we have a Patreon exclusive podcast that we have a free episode every month if you want to check that out. There's a link in the description. There's a free episode right now about a game called Drink Then Forget. So thank you again so much, Martin, for submitting this game. Thank you for putting it in a vulnerable spot, and letting me tear it apart. I think that's really kind of you to have done that. And thank you for being the first person for submitting your game to Games Over Qualia, this new type of thing that I'm doing. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and I hope you join me next time. Peace.